Kayang-kaya iwasan ng cancer, KKK, at sana iwasan ang paninigarilyo, usok ng sigarilyo at ngayon, vaping ang dapat iwasan. Kumain tayo ng gulay at prutas at pangatlo, gawing regular ang pagsariling salat ng suso o SSS. Alamin ang mga palatandaan ng cancer at kung kakaba kayo, kumonsulta agad sa doktor. Ang cancer ay kayang-kaya malutasan. Kung maagapan, let's do it! O kung kami, let's do it again!
The son of very popular former DOH Secretary and well-loved former Senator, the first nominee of PhilHealth party list, Dr. Jonathan David Flavier. Good morning, Dr. John D.
Good morning, Atty. Karen.
Para akong binalik sa past. Kamukhang-kamukha niyo po ang daddy niyo.
Mumultuhin kayo. Mas gwapo daw siya kaysa sa akin.
Such a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you very much.
Get ready. Don't you want me like I want you, baby? Don't you need me like I need you? See tomorrow, but tonight go crazy. All you gotta do is just meet me at Get ready.
And now we have the former DOH Dancing Assistant Secretary and the second nominee of PhilHealth party list, Dr. Enrique Tayag.
Good morning, Atty. Karen.
Good morning! What
Happy
a
New
nice
Year
morning
too.
here and Happy New Year. What a great way to start 2025.
Pinagpawisan tayo daw.
Ako pinagpawisan dahil magandang katabi.
But what a nice way to start 2025 with two brilliant doctors.
Thank you very
but
much.
very also interesting characters. We have someone who exactly looks like your dad. Para kaming blast from the past kanina.
Thank you.
And of course, I remember you, Assistant Secretary Enrique Tayag. The first government event that we attended together, I was surprised na may dancing talent pala si Dr. Enrique at the time.
There's a story behind that, Atty. Karen.
So, okay, let's go to the stories. First, Dr. John D.
Yes.
So now you are entering politics through a party list. But first, as the son of the iconic Senator Juan Flavier, what do you miss most about your father?
Oh, okay. Of course, the energy and the communication skill. Kasi there are a lot of good physicians, but not all are able to impart and inspire their patients and the people who need health promotion and health education. Sabi nga ng favorite interview ko ni Vice Ganda, dalawa lang daw ang Secretary of Health na naaalala niya. Si Secretary Juan Flavier at saka si Secretary Eric Tayag. So that's what we miss.
At least, Dr. Enrique, look at how you're being compared to former Senator Juan Flavier. But do you get tired sometimes of being compared to your dad?
Oh, me?
Yes.
Fortunately, I have a very nice mom who encourages me as well. Ang assurance niya sa akin, anak ka, you're really the improved version. Kaya hindi ako na-insecure. But honestly, I'm just a little taller by a few inches, pero he's much more handsome, sabi niya. Kaya,
But
okay
now,
lang.
do you have a son as well?
Yes.
Does your son follow your footsteps?
He's much better looking, but his interests are more varied as well. So,
Okay, so talagang improvement of the race. Kayo
Yes,
pagwapo ng pagwapo.
At saka genetically at saka sa evolution, we're fortunate to have a wonderful son and daughter. Kaya,
Well, your dad has left a lasting legacy in Philippine politics and also in the medical field. So why have you decided to enter politics?
okay. The wonderful part is, historically, Dad went into politics to assure sustainability, because he demonstrated a lot of programs in the executive branch, but these are not long-lasting unless you can be able to legislate. In our case, it's different. We have so many laws and so much legislation done, but the implementation is what's lacking. So we're not here to claim that we will bring in very new laws, revolutionary policies. We believe that the funds are there, the policies are there. It's only the implementation that's lacking.
And in terms of implementation, what can you bring? Have you been a practicing doctor for the past several years?
Okay, yes, 3 decades. Halos kabatch kami ni Secretary Eric, both in medical school and in the programs. But Eric was in the DOH, Department of Health, like Dad. Unfortunately for me, when Dad was in the DOH, I was banned. So
Because
I
of
had to-
nepotism.
yes, so I had
Okay.
to work in the private, non-government sector. So that's a long way of saying the experience I bring is complementary to what Dad had in the DOH. What the private sector can do, especially in partnership with the government, focusing on universal health care.
And-
Kasi matagal na yan eh.
What is your specialty in the medical field?
Oh, I like to say I am a vasectomy promoter.
Vasectomy. So medyo may related to population control?
More
or-
on the assisting couples who have achieved their desired family size. Pag happy na sila, by tradition, Filipinos tend to prefer women being ligated. So sila na nga nanganak, sila nagbuntis, nagdalang tao, tapos sila patatalian. So we try to promote more male responsibility. Lalaki naman
Oh,
ang
wow. And that's
magpapatali.
impressive. And that's before the woke culture. You were
Yes.
already looking at some type of equality
Correct,
among
correct.
the genders.
That's right.
And have you also served barangays and barrios? Because your dad was known for that, being a doctor of the barrios.
Yes. Yes and no, in the sense that for the first few decades of my career, I was into village visits, fieldwork, and community immersion. But unfortunately, for conditions like vasectomy promotion, we find that the direct face-to-face was not so good. The modern concept of you younger people is social media. And we found that social media provides the how should I say this, the less visible engagement. So they're more comfortable engaging with us because social media, texting does not bring them to the limelight. Unlike what I was used to in the earlier decade, na community engagement, you ask them if they want vasectomy services, nahihiya sila na makita ng mga kapitbahay. So that's the long way of saying na Dad was in the era of direct face-to-face engagement. Now we're learning
Yeah, and
the
that makes
social
sense
media.
because during your dad's time, wala pa namang social media, wala
Hindi
pang
pa,
Facebook.
hindi pa.
So right now, a lot of your patients, they get in touch with you and your team through Facebook. Nagme-message sila that they want a vasectomy.
To be exact, 90% Facebook, social media, and the wonderful part is it's usually the wife or the partner who picks it up and encourages the husband to have that practice.
Okay, and when you provide these services, is it for free?
Yes. Fortunately, we have private sector donors. So that's what we also want to do in the HEAL PH Party List 152. It's not only government that can be left alone to succeed. We need private sector support, and that type of partnership is what we believe can be a good model.
And for us to understand this better, the type of vasectomy that you provide, does it require surgery? Or we heard of a non-scalpel vasectomy.
Yes, that's what we do. It's the no scalpel vasectomy. Technically, it's still considered minor surgery. The only difference is during the time of Dad, they used a scalpel to cut through the skin of the scrotum. Now we just put anesthesia, put a puncture wound, and stretch. Then we can do the procedure of cutting and tying the vas, where the sperm cells pass. And when you pull that out, the skin naturally closes up, so you don't need to sew anymore. You just put a cover, a plaster, that it's done.
And the recovery period is also much faster.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to ask Dr. Eric. Dr. Eric, you were telling me kanina there's a story behind you being a dancing doctor. What is that story? How did you end up becoming the dancing doctor?
Well, sometime in 2011, we had the Iwas Paputok under the tenure of Secretary Ona. And we brainstormed how to make sure that more revelries will have no accidents or injuries when the holidays come through. And of course, one of those was to get people inclined to getting away from the fireworks themselves. And so Six Cycle Mind came to us and they produced a CD which had all the noises there or the sounds of the firecrackers. So we had a launch at the East Avenue Medical Center. But after the launch, a nurse approached me and said, Dr. Tayag, can you oblige us because we have a party for the children patients here who are cancer patients and they're now not so energetic to start the party. Maybe you can dance with them. So what's the music? Gangnam Style.
And at that time, the nurses knew that you dance, or
No.
They were just taking
but
a
they were
chance.
just that I can just make some gestures.
okay.
But what I didn't know was that there was a TV broadcast network that had filmed the dance. And so the following evening, it was already announced the DOH has a new Iwas Paputok campaign. Gangnam Style. So, that's the start of my dancing doctor days. and
Dapat
years.
pala binalik ka namin for this year because for 2025 there
I could have danced
statistic,
Apeti.
yeah, the statistics I think 500 injuries already from fireworks.
Yes.
So but that was very effective. At that time, were you already into dancing as a hobby?
Not yet, but I joined a fitness gym just because I wanted to be fit. Because in 2004, under the tenure of Secretary David, there was this program of actually imbibing mobility for many Filipinos. Because at that time, we already foresee that obesity, diabetes, and other the chronic diseases will be the issues of many years to come.
Well, it did happen, no?
And
Now-
it happened,
Yes.
actually.
And Dr. Eric, you were in government for 35 years.
Yes, that's correct, Attorney Karen.
One, why did you retire? And why did you now decide to shift to legislative, coming from
Okay.
the executive position for many
I was
years?
66 last April when I retired, the age of retirement. I was extended only for another year and as undersecretary, and I was responsible for the public health services cluster before I retired. And so I went into politics not because it was my intent after my retirement, but because of circumstance, blame this Dr. Flavier. And then I thought, and I had to say a prayer because my siblings won't allow me to go into politics. But I was able to convince them because I said I asked for a blessing from the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And that's the end of the argument. I told
Okay.
them.
Well, right now, you did end up together
Yes.
in this PH party list, and I like the energy. Like, you both have a lot of energy together, and I see that you are also friends. So how did you come up with this idea to put up a party list?
To confess, it was not our idea. The original concept came from a very wonderful man who actually wanted to build hospitals because he saw among his clients the tragedy of people dying because they didn't have money to get into hospital or buy medicines. So the story was, because of that, he wanted to respond to that need and build hospitals. But with the difficulty of constructing and registering hospitals, and the realization that there are so many hospitals that just need to be refurbished and improved, he shifted gears and said, we need to just refurbish our existing health system, but you also need health policy to do that. So he set up this party list, and with that idea in mind, we were pulled in to help him out.
Okay, and I'm curious, as to why you decided to put up a party list instead of a foundation, for example. But for now, we'll have to take a short gap. We'll get to know more about Heal PH Party List when At the Forefront returns after a short break.
The questions,
Why sounds very serious, but
Seryoso,
watch
no?
it.
Di ba parang, crime, may away pamilya, etc.
the issues,
Who are supposed to be on the faces of our bank, of our money?
Bangko Sentral, no? There is a numismatic committee who meets and decides.
we clarify matters.
The 1,000 peso bill was changed from the three heroes of World War II to the Philippine Eagle.
Pinky Web is always on point.
Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Rain Musnip. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey.
We empower,
Filipino startups can actually compete globally.
we motivate,
growing retail interest today from a cryptocurrency perspective.
changes that are vital.
We have high data privacy standards for all our clients.
Follow the money with Rain Musngi.
Keep it here on BNC, the Billionaire News Channel, always on top.
The latest weather updates and forecast
Could be another tropical cyclone heading towards us at the end of the year.
with information to help us understand important aspects about our climate.
Can you tell us a bit about the jobs that will actually be produced by this project, not just in the construction, but of course in the actual running of this farm?
Weather HQ.
Whatever the weather, only here on BNC, the Billionaire News Channel.
Welcome back at the Forefront. Let's get to know more about Heal PH from Dr. John D. Flavier and Secretary Enrique Tayag. Okay, so let's talk about Heal PH's journey to becoming a party list. Why a party list instead of a foundation, for example? Because that is also an effective way to
Yes.
address the problems of healthcare in the Philippines.
Okay, I've been with the Department of Health for 35 years. Call it the modus operandi. The Department of Health was established to actually promote health. And then it morphed into providing services, even with the devolution of the health services in 1991, the Act on Devolution. And then the third one is actually to regulate the services to protect consumers, patients, and everyone. And also, it crafts policies. Now, what's missing are the laws. And the law is not the purview of the Department of Health. It's with the legislative
Congress, yes.
branch.
So what
and that's
type
why, and
of-
I thought, and maybe Dr. Flavier also thought, that we can make a difference.
Yeah, so
with
very
this party
briefly,
list.
what gaps are you seeing right now in our laws on healthcare?
Well, in universal healthcare, the three important pillars are accessibility, affordability, and the quality of health services. So we have problems in all three pillars. Accessibility, not everyone can have access to affordable health services that can also be considered quality. And so while the Universal Healthcare Act implementation is struggling to make these three goals become a reality, the Heal PH party list will have its contribution. And Dr. Flavier has so many on his list. Maybe we can ask him, Attorney Karen.
Yeah, so Dr. John D., can you give us an idea as to what priorities you have?
Okay, yeah, that's good. The priorities, kasi the list is very
Kasi masyadong
long, but
mahaba,
the
yes.
priorities have to be surfaced. And that's where I like to imagine that if the voters allow us to engage them and join them in the House, there's four responsibilities of most legislators. Number one is lawmaking, oversight work, constituency building, and advocacy. So our work is cut out for us because of the fact that for health, and especially for universal health care, the law is established, the implementing rules and regulations are there, even the budget has been defined. So that's my way of saying that the legislation may be not a priority, it's the oversight to make sure that the law is implemented. And among our constituents, the universal health care is still too nebulous. Secretary Ona tried to put it down and simplify it by calling it kalusugan pangkalahatan. But still, the implementation needs to be refined. And finally, the advocacy part is what we're doing.
What part of implementation is not well done right now in the Philippines? What makes healthcare expensive and inaccessible for Filipinos?
Okay. The wonderful law that was preceding universal healthcare is the devolution, where the actual implementation of programs was shifted to local government. So that's a wonderful concept, but it was not completely done for health. The responsibilities were shifted, but the confession of Secretary Flavier when we were talking in the home previously was that his responsibilities were shifted, but most of the budget remained with the national government. Universal health care, one of the fundamental elements, is transferring more of the funds and resources to local government.
And do you think
that's
that's not
missing.
susceptible to politicking? Because at the national government level, you can have civil servants like Secretary Tayag
Yes, who are very
implementing
proven
na
already.
walang politics, right? But when you give it to the local governments and you have mayors that need to be re-elected, don't you think
Every
that's
3 years.
susceptible to politics?
The more telling issue is corruption.
Yes.
Some people say there's corruption in local government, but there's also bigger corruption in national government. So it's the elements are in place for oversight, audit, etc. Na sige, makakalusot ka ng taon na to, but because of the audit rules of universal healthcare, captured ka agad pagka loko ka. So that's my way of saying that local government people can make mistakes, but national government has also done the same. So it's time now for, if we're really serious about shifting responsibility to local governments, resources, especially for health, should also be given to them.
And in your vision of what Heal PH can do, should you be able to get a seat, do you envision that Filipinos won't have to pay for healthcare? Paano gagawin yun?
Okay. So the interesting part about the motivation of our party list, Attorney Karen, is the health card. The numbers do not tell a lie. In the national health accounts, for example, up to 50% is out of pocket, and that's a very big money. And the expenditures for health runs from 1.3 to 1.4 trillion pesos. And if you add up all the budget and allocation of government from taxes, from other sources, it's barely half. And so that's why 50% is out of pocket. Reducing it and eliminating it is not only a good idea, but because there is at least one country that has made sure that no one pays, and that's Brazil. No one pays, not the citizens, not those staying in Brazil, the non-citizens. They're not paying.
What about Cuba? Cuba, I think, has also a lot,
Yes,
a lot of
many
subsidy.
has actually accomplished their targets for universal health care, but Brazil was different, very different, because it was in their constitution. And while taxes provided them this advantage, we can look into the future. And that's why our symbol is the health card. That when you have this health card, no questions asked, no woke statements or language. You get the affordable quality healthcare that you get.
Can we afford that as a country?
We have our calculations.
Yes,
We have consulted our economists. The answer is a resounding yes.
If I can
But-
put that,
But the but comes from you.
Sige,
Ikaw ba ang treasurer? Okay.
So the but, before the but, the
You
money
mentioned
is
because
there.
corruption,
Yes.
the systems change.
Yeah.
and
And-
the other parts of the health system.
Yeah, but will this also be your vision for Filipinos who can afford healthcare? So we have super wealthy Filipinos that make up about 20% of the population. Will they also be entitled to a health card that would give them access to free medical care?
Yes, Attorney Karen, and we have to mention here that this is not about treatment and care and diagnosis. It's actually preventing these diseases in the first place. The top three leading causes of death are so scary: the heart ailments, the cancers, and the strokes. And we are looking at a Philippines that will have an aging population, and this will only be aggravated by these conditions.
And all three of those are prevented by dancing with Secretary Eric.
And of course, a healthy lifestyle, Attorney
Yes.
Karen.
But then with that, so with the health card, for example, how do you envision implementing this? If you're a taxpayer, you get a health card, but for those who don't have income and those that are not even in the formal economy, meaning yung mga nagtitinda lang sa kalye, sila yung normally walang identification, walang mga registration, how will they get a health card?
Yeah, okay. So health card kasi is, I'd like to call it the symbol of universal health care. Having a health card and making use of it is symbolic of universal health care implementation. But let's shift to how that health card can be actually used. And that the assertion is we have the money, and in fact we're spending the amount that's there. My computation is around 1.5 trillion. 1.4 ang sinasabi ng economists, but that's my estimate, around 1.4 to 1.5. But when you say that, the money is there because if you translate this is roughly 13,000 per person. The World Health Organization suggests that in fact, you only need 8,000 per person to have a good funded health system. Of course, countries like Singapore have 200,000 per person, while the very poor have much less. But the Philippines is on average. The money is there. Now, what are the changes that we want to emphasize? The money is there, but more than half, as Dr. Eric has pointed out, comes from out of pocket. So if you're rich, like you're saying, the middle class, they can afford out of pocket. But if you're poor, out of pocket will wipe you out. It's very catastrophic. So that's the first correction. The money is there, but it comes from out of pocket. We want that to be reduced. We have government funds, PhilHealth funds. The DOH has a budget of more than 200 billion. If this can be put into the pot, the universal health care calls for a pooling of resources. Because if you get a need for health care, you have to go to your barangay, your mayor, SSS, PAGCOR, your affluent. Instead of having to go to so many places, universal health care aims to pool all of these together. So the money's there, how we use it, where it comes from, that's a challenge.
Yes, and are you envisioning the Department of Health to be the sole custodian and implementer? Because two issues that put PhilHealth in the limelight last year were the transfer of the 90 billion.
89.
Is that, yes, about 90 billion, so 89 billion pesos unutilized PhilHealth funds that went to the unprogrammed allocation of the national government. And then there was also a PhilHealth memorandum of agreement with Tingog Party List and DBP for the construction of rural healthcare facilities. So what are your stand on those issues?
This is under public scrutiny. The first one, we're awaiting for a Supreme Court decision, which may not be near the finish line, but may actually be immaterial now because much of those were already transferred to the National Treasury. And so the PhilHealth still grapples with the zero subsidy for the 2025 budget. The Tingog Party List and their collaboration with PhilHealth and the Development Bank of the Philippines speaks of a collaboration that assumes a public-private partnership, but raises questions about its political objective, and so therefore puts doubt into these efforts. The PhilPH party list just hopes that the Tingog party list has, and the PhilHealth as well as the DPP has thought of how exactly they're going to implement this. Because in their collaboration, the infrastructure of hospitals that will require significant improvements is on the line because of the loans that can be provided by the Development Bank of the Philippines. Exactly how the Tingog party list will intervene with these arrangements has to be transparent, above board, and that it does not speak of any political favors.
If you will allow, Attorney Karen, I'd also like to focus on clarifying the funds from
Yes,
PhilHealth.
that's
There were actually two pots.
Yes.
The first pot was returned by PhilHealth, that was around 79 billion, but the other is withholding the budget that was supposed to go to PhilHealth. So the first part was PhilHealth already had the money, it returned to National Treasury. The other was they were expecting funds from the budget, this was withheld. So these two are important issues in the sense that it seems like you're depriving people of funds, but if you look at what PhilHealth has reported itself, they say that they have 281 billion in operating funds, 150 billion in reserves, and 480 something in investments or portfolio investments. So summing that up, that's almost 900 billion. It may not be that large, but the point is there's money with PhilHealth. The attitude of PhilHealth in the past has been more of like a bank that's building up these resources. I like what former Secretary Romualdez used to say, you're not supposed to be a bank. If you lose money because of services, that's better. So I tend to look positively on the budget being withheld because PhilHealth is forced to spend. So the
that's
money
why
that they
for
have...
2025, you don't have issues with PhilHealth getting zero
Yes.
subsidy from
The money's
the
there.
national government because it's there. So based on your vision of a health card,
Okay.
PhilHealth is for people who have given contributions, meaning they work and they have paid contributions to PhilHealth. But a lot of the people who can't afford healthcare are those who don't have participation in the formal economy and they don't have any withholding of salaries to pay contributions to PhilHealth. So how do you plan to implement free healthcare for people? This would require a new law that's beyond PhilHealth. Is that something that you're considering here? Because PhilHealth, again, already has its own charter.
Yes.
That would be for members,
Well,
right?
Attorney Karen, right now, this is the 5th year for the oversight in the Congress and Senate, both of them, to look at what has been implemented, what are the gaps in the first 5 years of the implementation of the Universal Healthcare Law. But this would be climbing a mountain because between 2019 and 2025, there was this pandemic which has actually adversely affected the implementation of the universal health care. And so it would expose gaps and other issues or concerns that were not thought of when the law was actually passed. While I agree with Dr. David Flavier that we can act as an oversight, one of the results of this committee report would actually mean an amendment or another law perhaps. The amendments are going on, but another law that would be expected should move us towards just a lip service of universal health care to really a universal health care where no one pays and where reduced or eliminated
So
the
just like
out-of-pocket.
Brazil.
Yes.
Just like Brazil. So very quickly, how would you rate this administration, the current administration's prioritization of healthcare in the Philippines on a scale of 1 to 10?
Right now, if we basis on the budget allocations for 2025, when the Department of Health ranked 5, and it's barely 300 billion pesos for the Department of Health, on a rating from 1 to 10, I will give it a 7.
You'll give it a 7. That's
A
still
7.
pretty high. And Heal PH is one of the party list groups which got 0.00 in the preferential survey ng Tugon ng Masa Partylist survey by OCTA Research. How do you intend to work on improving your chances of getting a seat?
Oh, we
in
just met
Congress?
Dr. Guido a while ago.
He's gonna be here after.
Yes, I'm sorry, Attorney Karen, for
You can
divulging his
interview him after
presence.
this,
And
yes.
he mentioned about an explanation for that number of
Yes,
0.0%.
I actually want to ask that also. Okay.
And in fact, he whispered already to us, but we won't spill the beans here because we'll have Dr. Guido in a while. And we suddenly smiled. So 0 is not 0. And Dr. Guido will
So it's
spill
more
it.
of a statistical reporting
Yes.
method na may
And,
And he will
0.00.
explain it
On the
better.
positive perspective, from a positive perspective, I like Dr. Eric's position. When you're at 0, there's only one way to go, and it's going up.
Okay. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the chances of getting healthcare, universal healthcare that's for free for all Filipinos to really happen should Heal PH get a seat in Congress?
If you get a sick,
Yes.
it's going to be more than 7.
Yeah, I'll even say 3,
A
3, 3. The funds are there, the policies are there. The last 3 is what you were alluding to earlier, the question of values of people. Will the middle class be willing to subsidize the cost of the payments for the poor? Will the healthy be willing to subsidize the cost of the sick? That reflects the values of people. So we will do our best on the spending and utilization, but the values of the people will emerge and inform us on what
So
is
just
best
to
done.
clarify, PhilHealth, for example, with all the excess funds that they have in the health card system that Heal PH plans to implement, PhilHealth's funds will be used for that purpose as well?
Yes.
Yes, and we're moving closer to that one. And besides, this is not going to be a sprint. This is going to be a marathon. And everybody should finish the race. So a public-private partnership, an understanding of the law, the fight against corruption, to make sure that every individual has a stake in their own health. Because it will be impossible, Attorney Karen, that we have these laws and the individuals, each one of us, are not even accountable. Accountability should not stop with government, with PhilHealth, or the private sector. The accountability starts with us. For example, let's have a healthy diet. And having a healthy diet starts with us. We don't have to wait from the advice of the Department of Health. The education of the Filipinos is paramount, and we can start with that. You'll be surprised that we do not have a modest basic health literacy, and even the rich are failing on their health literacy, getting their information from sources that provide misinformation, disinformation is not a good start.
Well, it's been very informative, but I hope you succeed in making Filipinos healthier.
Thank you.
Thank you
We'll
again,
work.
Secretary Enrique Tayag and Dr. David Flavier. Thank
Our
you for
pleasure.
your time today,
And I hope,
good luck.
Attorney Karen, when we see each other, see, we have the health card and nobody pays.
Oo nga, if we ever get that health card, maalala ko tong interview na to. And good luck in the 2025 election.
Thank you very much.
Up next, OCTA Research's latest party list preferential survey. Up next at the forefront.
Smartphones is always the most in-demand electronics right now. Phones are like pocket computers. It offers a greater portability like laptops. This is why consumers top priority is portability, or should I say mobility. And this is why laptops comes next after the mobile phones. Students, they use tech in classrooms. That's why when they invest on high-tech quality gadgets, they can pass it on to their next sibling, or they can just use this phone after school when they're looking for a job. For example, for professionals, they would prefer not staying in their cubicle, but they would, let's say, set a meeting anywhere or elsewhere. But then again, it only shows that mobile phone is actually a basic requirement in everyone's lifestyle.
Magandang gabi, ako po si Pinky Webb.
At ako naman si Corina Sanchez Rojas.
Ngayong 2025, kombinasyong Corina Sanchez Rojas at Pinky Webb. Dalawang mababahayag na subok sa tapang at talino.
Simulcast tayo sa DWAR Abante Radyo at 94.7 Mellow BFM.
Mapapanood din tayo sa Abante Teletabloid sa Sky Cable. Sa bawat issue may anggulo at ang balita may agenda.
Welcome back at the forefront. In its latest Tugon ng Masa Partylist Preferential Survey, OCTA Research had 8 party list groups that are likely to bag at least 1 seat in the May election. Joining us this morning live at the BNC studio is the Chief Data Scientist of OCTA Research, Professor Guido David. Good morning, Professor Guido.
Good morning, Attorney Karen, and good to see you again. And hope you have had a happy New Year celebration.
I did. And it's nice to be back here. And ayan na, pinag-uusapan ng elections. And of course, OCTA Research's latest survey is also very insightful for voters to see sino yung mga party lists that are now leading. So first, can you give us an idea on the methodology behind this? The survey was taken for 7 days in November and had about 1,200 respondents that were face-to-face.
Yes.
How did you manage to do that?
Yeah, the survey methodology employs a multi-stage sampling. So yun yung mahalaga sa survey is the sampling method. So we choose randomly these barangays or the cities and the barangays and the households where we conduct the survey. And what I mean by the sampling is I can interview, for example, 1,200 students of mine in UP where I teach, but the sampling won't be good because I'm interviewing mostly a homogeneous group, which means more or less they're the same demographic, same age group. But if you're interviewing nationwide and it's randomly sampled, everyone has a chance to be interviewed. So even though it's 1,200. And I was looking at some surveys in the US, for example, during the election campaign period, and they had only 700 respondents for a 5% margin of error, and that was nationwide in the US with a population of about 300 million people. So this one, we did 1,200 respondents nationwide. Luzon,
all the way
Visayas,
up to Mindanao.
Yes, up to Mindanao, and the sampling error, the margin of error is just 3%. So hopefully, we can get a good estimate of what the public is feeling right now.
And based on party lists, some of them have their own bailiwicks. So for example, ako Bicol party list has a concentration of people voting for them in Bicol, or Tingog party list has a following in Leyte. How do you avoid having that ruin your randomization?
Well, it's inherent there that they have an advantage because they have a built-in base already. And you just talked to, for example, the PhilPH nominees who happen to be my friends. I attended their launch, and they're not up to the other, like Ako Bicol, in terms of numbers,
yes,
because of the awareness is not yet there. So the sampling will still determine who are the more or less popular party lists. And this is, again, another issue of, a popularity thing. I mean, just like with if you're running for a senator, if you're not a known personality, it's going to be an uphill battle to get the numbers or the votes for senator. And ganun din sa party list, Attorney Karen. You have to have a level of awareness. And if you have, and it's not necessarily that because, Bicolanos will vote for Ako Bicol, because there are some party lists which cater to certain groups of people, but they're lower in numbers. So it's just more of the branding. Like Axis is a well-known brand, and some of the other groups are, One Rider Party List is fairly well-known. So some of these party lists can leverage the popularity of their group. Some of them have backings from, certain movements or sectors that will give them support. But again, if we go back to the results of the survey, a group like HealPH, and I think it was mentioned by Dr. Enrique Tayag, they might have 0% in the current survey, but the margin of error is 3%, so it's between 0 and 3%.
Okay.
So that's what I'm.
So it's not really zero.
It could not. It's not necessarily zero because they will vote for themselves. I will. I probably know some people who will vote for them. So, but of course, the challenge is how to build awareness for their group. And maybe...
Which is kind of ironic because the party list system constitutionally was built on representing underrepresented sectors. But now when it goes to the election, then it's really a question again of popularity. And now that we've talked about popularity, ACT-CIS got 13% of the results in the preferential survey, which was the largest margin. What does this mean when you say 13% compared to all the other parties that got less than double digits? And of course, majority got 0.00.
Well, of course, ACT-CIS will probably get several seats into Congress, and that's the implication of this. They have a significant lead. Even with a 3% margin of error, they would still be at least 10%, and probably enough to get 3 seats already. So it's an uphill battle for the other party lists. And you're right. I believe that when they framed the Constitution, the intent was for underrepresented groups, maybe minorities, stuff like that, can get representation. But now it's turning into something that's more of a popularity contest, and that's the challenge here.
And ACT-CIS, which is the leading party list, is identified with the Tulfos, but it's currently the party list of Congressman Erwin Tulfo, who sits in Congress. And I saw a billboard in SLEX of ACT-CIS where the pictures were Senator Raffy Tulfo and his wife. So clearly this is identified with the Tulfo family. Does this reflect on the strength of the Tulfo brand?
Definitely. We see that in the senatorial preference survey, they have the first 2 positions. And maybe if they fielded another Tulfo, they might even get another one. I don't know. There are possibilities. The Tulfo brand is currently strong. Of course, yung mga brands, sometimes some of them come and go. So we'll see how resilient the Tulfo brand is over the next few years.
Okay, but can you help me analyze also some of the survey results where we have number 2, Tingog party list, and this is identified with Speaker Martin Romualdez. The current representative in Congress for Tingog is the wife of Speaker Martin, Yeda Romualdez. But in the other surveys, in terms of approval ratings, the approval rating of Speaker Martin Romualdez has gone down. So how would you account for that, being identified with a certain individual but still ranking highly in the party list survey? And you have also Ako Bicol party list that's identified with Congressman Zaldico. So for people like ordinary voters, how do we make of this when it comes to the party list system? Do they get identified with certain individuals, or do they have an identity of their own?
I think they have an identity of their own. It's more of a branding, and I think they can get votes from certain bailiwicks or baluartes, and I think that's very important for a party list system. So even if your popularity is going down, it's not difficult still to get, like Tingog has 6% of the vote, and that's not a very large number, but that may be enough to get them 3 seats. So relatively, their popularity may have been affected, but if they're getting a significant number of votes in certain areas, like in Leyte or in Bicol region, they can definitely get more votes than lesser-known party lists, like some of those we mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And when we're looking at this list, we have 4Ps as number 6 and Tupad as number 7, and these are also programs existing right now as ayuda. Do you think these two party lists have an undue advantage of having the names of ayuda programs of the government?
Yeah, actually, they do have that advantage, and I don't know how COMELEC is gonna, handle this. I mean, because technically, the voting public, and some of them are not very well aware of these. I mean, you go through the list of, the party list system. There are a lot of party lists there, and it's
over
going
150 now, no?
Yes, and I don't blame the public if they become confused, and then they will just find something that they can sort of identify with. And if this is something that, okay, I was helped by the ayuda system, so maybe I'll vote for this one. So there's an advantage, and again, the COMELEC will have to see, if there's anything that should be done about this, because it does give an advantage. I mean, let's be transparent about it. It does give an advantage. If I didn't know anything better, I would just go for 4Ps, because if it helps.
But I suppose when you said that there's also some branding that is distinct to each of the party lists, Bayan Muna now ranked number 9. It's in the next page of this. But in the past election, they didn't make it. They didn't get a seat in Congress. And I know that I think at that time, former President Duterte also campaigned against them. So do you think that this indicates that the Duterte endorsement is waning, or is this more of an issue that they have their own identity?
Well, I think it's a bit of both, but I think the endorsement is already declining. I mean, we see that in some of the other numbers that we're looking at in terms of the influence, the sphere of influence that they have. I mean, don't get me wrong, their influence is still formidable, especially in the southern parts of the country. But there's definitely some waning. But there are some opportunities for these other party lists, which have previously been, sort of maybe, getting less popular or getting less votes, but now they can make a comeback. And some of these other party lists also with their own built-in support groups, you see Akbayan there, number 8, they can still have their own support that hopefully they can bring them enough votes
to get some,
at least one seat.
And Professor Guido, when can we expect the next OCTA Research survey to come out? 2025 na, exciting. We're near the election.
Yes, it's getting near the election. We only have a few months to go. And in fact, we might be having a monthly survey. I mean, of course.
Wow. Meron na bang ongoing now as we speak?
Not yet, because, of course, during the holidays, we don't do surveys. People are out on holidays. So, but I think this January, we're planning to have another survey and maybe another for February. So I can't promise that. Professor Ranjit will be the one to confirm that. But definitely, we need to have the data so that we can see any changes that could happen. For example, HealPH, baka magkaroon ng dancing, mag-trending sa dance at TikTok si Dr. Eric, and that will help propel their brand. So who knows? I mean, a lot of things can still change. So this is not yet set in stone. So again, yung survey namin was conducted November pa. So when we ask the survey question, it's as of that time. So it's not predictive. So we don't know what will happen in May.
Well, we look forward to having monthly surveys, hopefully, and we look forward to seeing the results. Thank you so much, Professor Guido David.
Thank you.
While the latest OCTA Research Party List survey showed that familiar groups are in the top ranks, all is not lost among well-meaning party list groups out to make a difference in the lives of Filipinos including HealPH. More than the popular names and the big politicians behind party list groups is the legislative agenda that legitimate party list groups can bring to Congress once they get the mandate from Filipino voters. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. Always stay at the forefront. Join us again on Monday for meaningful conversations that would help you form an objective personal opinion. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your hour with us.